Hello, and welcome to another Gramps tutorial. In this episode, we will see an overview of the Gramps genealogical environment and some of the basic options available to us to fit our needs. If you've not yet installed Gramps, please refer to my previous video listed in the description. For demonstration purposes, I will be using the example tree that comes with Gramps. For instructions on loading this tree into your own version of Gramps, see the link in the description. So without further ado, let's begin. So here I have my genealogical Gramps program running, and I have the example tree loaded into it. The very first window that you will see is the dashboard, and we can see that that is indicated because it's slightly grayed and looks like it's pressed in on the left, on the left sidebar here. The dashboard provides various widgets, which Gramps refers to as Gramplets, to provide an insight to our data. The very first time you open up Gramps, you'll probably have something that looks just like this. You'll have the Welcome to Gramps window and maybe the top surnames. However, we can change this. We can add, remove, and move around the different Gramplets to our needs. If we want to add a new Gramplet, we simply right-click in the gray area in the main content panel, and we can see we can add a Gramplet, and there's various choices here. We can have age stats, age on date, calendars, records, surname clouds, to-do, various things. And in the future, we'll also be getting add-ons, which will give us more functionality. But for now, this is what comes with Gramps to start. So I will go ahead and click on, say, to do. Now, I've obviously not entered anything in here, so there's not anything here yet. But this is a great place where I could mark what I want to research next, or what I need to fix in my database, whatever it is. Now, let's say I added that on accident. All I have to do is click the X, and it goes away. And let's say I close this one as well. And let's say I didn't want to close that one. I can always right-click here, restore, and it'll show me the Gramplets that were recently closed, so I can restore that. I can also move them around. If you find this little wrench icon, click and drag, we can actually move them wherever we want. So I can actually rearrange these. Now I currently have 2 columns, and it works all right for my computer. If you have a wider screen, you might be able to fit 3, 4, and the way to do that is up in the very top. There is a button that says Configure the Active View. If we click on that, we can change the number of columns. I usually tend to default to 3 because my computer can generally display them pretty well. And that way I get a good area for the various Gramps that I want to see the data for. Alright, so let's move on. The next thing that we will look at here is people. So the people tab on the left will show every single individual in my tree. Now there are 2 different ways that we can view people. We can either view them nested under their surname, or we can view all the individuals at once. The way we do that is we go up here to the top, and there are 2 buttons here, grouped people or people. So right now they're grouped under surname. We can also just list them all if we click on people. So whichever way works for you, whatever seems to be the most useful, you can switch between the 2. We also have filters here on the right, and we can also add other Gramplets. If there's something that you like that would be useful while on the people page, we just click on this arrow here, Gramplet menu bar, and you can add or remove one of the Gramplets here. There's various options here which will allow us to do various things depending on what it is. You'll just have to play with them all, kind of see what you like, what you don't like, and what's useful for the tree that you are trying to build. Okay, so in the filter here, we can just type a name, an ID, a birth date, whatever we're looking for. Let's just look for everyone named John. So we type in John in the name, we click find, And now here are the results. Just people with the name of John in their name. and we can actually see down in the bottom right how many that is. Person view, it says 136 out of 2,000, so there's 136 people listed here. If we want to go back to our default view, we can click on reset and then click on find one more time, and it'll bring us back to the original window. Now you'll see down here in the bottom, the person that is currently selected will have information available about that person. So right now we have this Lewis Anderson Sr. All right, there he is. He's selected here. He has this blue bar. So if we change it, it will actually change the information down on the bottom. Let's go back to him. He's got a lot of information about him. So this is just the detail view. But if we go through these, we can see the various things that are entered. So we've got events that he's involved in, his children, any citations, notes about him, attributes, and references. So we can do this for any person here. All right, the next tab here that I want to look at is relationships. So this is going to keep the person that was currently selected, and it's going to display information just about that person. So we had Lewis Anderson Sr. here. It's now going to show us kind of a relationship page about him. So it's going to show us his father, his mother, his siblings, and then it will also show his family, his spouse, his children, depending on whether or not you have that information entered. Now, you can also enter that type of information from this window just by clicking the plus, or if you already have the person created, you can use this add person as a child to the existing family. That's going to add an existing person you've already created, and you can just attach them that way. You can also refocus your current person. So say I want to actually look at some information about his mother, Phoebe. Each of the names here are hyperlinks, so we can simply click on them and it will replace the selection with all of Phoebe's information. So now we see she's listed here on the top, and it lists her parents, her siblings, her spouse, and her children. So again, here is this Lewis Anderson that we started with. We can click on him and it'll take us back there. All right, and again, there's the Gramplet bar here, so we can click on this drop-down arrow and add any Gramplet that we want to that might be useful, something you just have to play around with and customize to your liking. All right, the next tab here is families. This is a really, really useful one. I'm sure you'll spend a lot of time on this one. Maybe not so much on the relationship one. I find myself spending most time on the people, families, and events tabs. So the family tab is going to list all of the families, so father, mother relationships, things like that. And we can actually adjust what is displayed here. And you can do that for the people tab as well. I didn't go into depth with that, but if we go to configure the active view, so again, this little bluish icon with the screwdriver, if we click on that, it's going to list columns, and we can actually change which columns we see here. So right now it's ID, father, mother, relationship, marriage date. We can either remove any of those columns by taking the checkbox, removing the check from the checkbox, or we can add more by checking any of the boxes that aren't checked. So let's say I want to look at last changed. So I add the check there, I click apply, close, and then we can see that the last changed is here. So maybe you want to see who you were recently working on. You can tell by this. All right, so I'll go ahead and remove that now. We just uncheck it, apply, it goes away. There we go. One thing that you might be familiar with, this is similar in many different programs, is we can sort by column here. So right now it's sorted by ID, and the way I know that is because this little black triangle is in the ID column here. And it's being sorted ascendingly. So we start at 0, and we go to, we continue numerically. Now we can sort it descendingly. We can go backwards just by clicking this column again. You see the triangle flips upside down now. So the larger part is on the top, smaller part's on the bottom. So we go from the biggest to the smallest that way. We can also sort alphabetically or by relationship or marriage date. Simply click the title column here. First it will be ascending, then descending, and we can sort for any of that information. Here's one for marriage date. Now, if you don't have any dates in there, obviously, they're all going to sort together. They're not really sorted. They're just sorted by missing information. All right, so you can see here they're now sorted by date. So maybe useful to you. I don't know. Okay, so the next thing on here is charts. All right, and this is something you're probably used to if you're used to using like Family Search or Ancestry. This is something that most people would kind of be used to seeing. So same with the relationships. It's just kind of a visual of his parents, his grandparents. You can click on the arrows to either go to the left and choose one of his children, or you can look, if you scroll over, you can go to the right. If he had grandparents listed there, we could continue over to the right as well. And you can also change the type of chart here too. So right now we have pedigree, we could have a fan chart, we could have descendant fan, just various features here for Gramps. You know, whatever you prefer, whatever way you like to view your data, you'll just have to play around with it and see what works best for you. All right, the next section here is events. And this is a really useful place. So this is all the events that are going to be listed in your database. Every time you create an event for a person, it's going to be stored here. So it's a really good thing when you get started if you kind of develop a consistency. And I will show you in the future videos as to how I do it and how I stay consistent. It's really good to see this example tree just to kind of get ideas of what you might want to do. So like, for example, the events that are birth, they have the description birth of and then last name, first name, that kind of thing. You can see all the births are listed together. And then, you know, burials, deaths, all that kind of stuff. So whatever events you want to store. And you can make your own. You don't have to use just the preset ones. You can make this tree however you want it to be for whatever purpose you're making it. And there's just, you know, various buttons up here. You can customize it again with the which columns you can view. You can merge events. You can add or remove events. You can edit events, tag things. There's all sorts of options here, and I could never cover them all in one video. So you'll see in future videos how I use certain things. But other than that, just play around with it. This is an example tree. So if you load the example tree, you don't have to be afraid if you're going to mess something up because, you know, this isn't your family tree or your research. This is kind of just a getting to know the software. Okay, so the next tab, and this will need a little bit more explanation possibly in the future. I will do a video on how I set mine up. This is not exactly how I set mine up, but it's close. So again, we can view either a nested view or just list all the places all at once. I prefer the nested view just so that I don't get lost in case there are certain places that have the same name, so that I know that this one is from this state and this one's from that state or something like that. And you get to decide how you nest them. So right now they have it by country, then by state, then by county, and then by cities inside the counties. I actually go a little bit further. So I actually, at times, you can either do like by buildings or place. So for example, maybe a church. Or I will also do houses. I mean, if I have information that says that they lived at 1234 Main Street, you know, I will actually go in and put the street name as well as the address. And I'll show you how to do that in a future video. But this is really useful just because once you have it set up nice, it's pretty easy to use and it's there for you. Every time you add an event or something, you can just search for the certain city, county, place, whatever. And then you can also go back and look at the places and see where have, you know, multiple families used the same place. So like you can look at everybody who got married at a certain church or everybody who's buried at a certain cemetery. So that's kind of useful. The geography tab, now I don't really use this too much. I mean, it might be useful to some people, but it seems to be pretty buggy to me. Now maybe not for you, but I've not had good luck with this in the past. But it will actually show you and pinpoint for you like where people lived, where they've been, where their events occurred, so you can kind of look at either could these families have, met and interacted with each other, or just getting, a good understanding of like where people are located, and how they've either, traveled, this or that, whatever. But I've not had much luck with this, so I really don't use this one all that much. All right, the next one actually kind of goes in a pair, so, or I guess a trio, I should say. Repository sources and citations. So all of these together will make up our documentation as far as where we got all of our information. And this is really, really useful and so helpful if you start it from the beginning and you make sure everything gets documented correctly. I cannot tell you how many times I want to just start putting all my data in the tree and filling it out, but then I'm always coming back and saying, where did that come from? I have no idea. So it's really good, and I've kind of made it a practice to, every time I put anything in my tree, I will, make sure that I have the source and documentation and all of that stuff. Now, the good thing is you can always reuse a lot of these. So you put it in once, and then you can use it multiple times, which is helpful. So a repository is, think of it as like the building or the place where you would go to get sources. So a library, some type of public, office or building where they've got records for, birth records, death records, whatever. Or it could even be somebody's house. If you've got, a relative who has a lot of pictures or information that you would like to, maybe go over and scan some of their stuff, or you have copies of some of their stuff, that would be a good place just to know where you got it. So that's the repository. Now, inside the repositories, we put our sources. So sources are like the collections, so the individual collections. So maybe I went to Family Search and I'm looking at their 1930 census. Okay, so the collection or the source would be like the 1930 census. The repository would be Family Search. And then within the sources, so once we create the source, we can start using citations. And the citation tab is not that helpful. I mean, as you can see, there's not a lot of description here. You can make it a little bit more descriptive if you want, but it really goes hand in hand with sources, which makes it helpful. So the citation is like the page number, or the file name, or the however you got to that individual record that you're looking at. Okay, and so together, all three of these really will help you make up the reference, because it'll tell you where it was found, what book it's in, for example, and then maybe like the page number. So I think this was the hardest part for me to kind of wrap my head around when I first started Gramps. So if you watch some of the future videos I put out here, I'll kind of show you how I do my sources and citations. I like to link them kind of together so I can go either way. And I also attach all the media I have to them, so that I can easily open up the sources and look at the stuff that I was interested in, versus having to go back all the time and try to find it again. All right, so second to last here we have media. And this is a very poor example of how you should organize your media, in my opinion, okay? When you've got 10 people in your tree and you've got maybe 20 pieces of media, okay, whatever, it's fine. It's not going to cause too much of a problem. But when you get thousands of people and thousands of pieces of media that you want to attach, it's going to be a mess if you're naming things like this. So in the future, I'm going to show you how I actually digitally organize all of my files, and how I do the media page so that things are easy to find and they're helpful. The biggest thing that I've found is to be very consistent with your naming practices. Give them a good title so that you can sort them in a certain way. And then just make sure that you've got a good storage pattern behind the scenes. So like I've got a good filing system, I think. I'm sure there may be better ways to do it or ways to improve, but over the years I've kind of developed a filing system on my computer which seems to be pretty useful and reduce a lot of redundancy, while also allowing me to find things very quickly. All right, the last one here is notes, and I like this. This is really helpful. So you can do various things with the notes. You can either just type out, interviews or something. You can make personal notes. You can attach notes to certain sources saying, whatever you need to note. And they'll all be stored here. Now you can give them a type, and you can create the types you want. You don't have to use just the preset ones. It gives you a preview. The other thing is you can also, here you can see there's a link here. You can also style them whatever way you want. So certain things can be, colored or underlined, whatever you want to do. You can style it all types of ways. So it's really helpful. The other thing that you can do, and you can do this for other things besides notes. I'm just going to show you here though, but if you open a note, you can also use tags, okay? And tags will actually, it'll color the note for you, a certain thing, whatever you've chosen. So this is another just helpful feature that, you may not have known about. So for example, I could click to do, and so now you see down here it says tags to do, okay? So I can sort by tag, so I can say which ones are still needed to do. So you can see there were a few that were already tagged as to do. If you want to create your own tags, you go to Edit, Tag, Organize Tags, and here you can either add, remove, edit, and you can also choose the colors for the tags. So just another kind of useful tool. And as far as that's pretty much all there is that you really need to know. It's always helpful to me if I, play around with it first before actually delving in with my own tree. I don't know how many times I've kind of started a tree one way and then decided that certain things weren't going to work as my tree started to scale, so I would have to go back and redo some things, and that's okay. You just need to find out what works for you, and really I think one of the most important things is to establish what your goals are as far as your family tree. So like, for example, my goal is more or less to present the data to other people who aren't going to be able to use Gramps. So Gramps is really a tool for me, but I don't expect other people to be able to use Gramps. So I like to use the reports here, and you can check these out too. I mean, there's tons of different things that you can create with Gramps. These are just a few. There are many others that we will be able to download in the future, and I'll show you how to in the next video. But I like to do the web page. So you can create a narrated website, and it will just pull everything together that you tell it to and put it into a website. And that way, just, average users who don't really necessarily need to install Gramps or even know how to use Gramps still be able to view all your data. So in the future videos, all of my data entry and stuff like that will kind of be geared towards creating a website. So whatever you want to do with yours, you'll just have to kind of work with it, tweak it, print out your reports, whatever you want to do, and see if you like what's being presented and how you put it in. And if you want to change something, you just got to play with it and see what works for you. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching!